Facebook page, and I don't see anything about it. Where?
I think it starts now. Yeah, it's on my Facebook. 3, 2, 1. Hei sann, og velkommen igjen til pisspreik om salg og markedsføring. Og I dag så har jeg med Rick Salmon, som også har vært med en gang før. Og Rick, jeg tenker at vi slår over til engelsk, for at når jeg og Rick snakker sammen, så blir det ofte engelsk. Men bare introduksjon først. Rick en kar som jeg har kjent siden... Ja, det vel siden 2010 vi møttes første gang, og jeg husker jo det første møtet, det var ganske morsomt, for vi hadde en felles bekjent som jeg jobbet for, som heter Truls Berg. Så kom du inn på kontoret, og så hadde jeg masse Chet Holmes-stoff der, og så begynte du å snakke om Chet Holmes, og så sa du at du hadde møtt han, og du hadde feiret med han, og Chet Holmes var en av mine store, og fortsatt en av mine store idoler når det kommer til salg og salgstreninger. Han en veldig anerkjent kar på det, og jeg har lært masse av Chet Holmes, jeg har vært på kurs med han. Og etter det så jeg liksom, du har holdt litt foredrag for ting jeg har gjort, og vi har snakket sammen, og jeg har vel hatt noen prater med deg når livet mitt ikke har vært litt tøft med konkurs og sånne ting. Og Rick, du en fantastisk kar som alltid stiller opp, og ikke minst, du har så ekstremt mye kunnskap når det kommer til gründerskap. Du har liksom holdt på med det, og I gang igjen med et nytt prosjekt nå, som endelig har blitt lansert etter å ha snakket om det et par år. Og det vel det vi skal snakke om I dag, så ja. I turn over to English now. Welcome, Rick. And I think it's quite cool that you have been running startup so many years, and again you start up something new. And what is driving you to do a new startup?
I don't know. It's a really good question, Peter Eric, and thank you for having me on the show, and welcome everybody. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here. It's always fun to talk to Peter Eric. He's one of those people who, over many, many years, we bump into each other from time to time, and it's always fun, it's always interesting, and Peter Eric, you've always got some kind of crazy fun things going on in your life, and it's always it's fun. So thank you for having me on. And as to your question about entrepreneurship, I don't know. That's a really good question. Why do this? You know, my kids, even today, and my kids are in their 30s, but they keep saying, you know, Dad, when are you going to get a real job? And I'm not sure I ever will. But I think, like so many other people, and a lot of the people who are followers of the stuff that you do, Peter Eric, are people who are driven a little bit. You have an idea. You have an idea about what you need and things that you want to do here in life, and I think that's part of it on that. And I've always been full of ideas and full of desire to make those ideas come to life. And here I am again. I've got a company that we just started, and we're doing really well, and it's a lot of fun. We've got an app that's just come out. I'll tell you about it in a few minutes, but it's a lot of fun, Peter Eric. That being part of creating something. And then also creating something that helps other people. I think for me, that's what drives me. How about you? Why do you keep starting all these new ventures?
I think it's a drive for me also. You know, after the Elevate bankruptcy, I was just like, oh, should I grow up now and get a job? And I remember my father, he come to me and said, and I need to borrow some money after bankruptcy because I didn't have any money. I heard that Katrine says that she had no sound. The rest of you hear us? Because it's stupid if we just talk to each other. So can you just say hello in the chat if you can hear me and Rick talking?
Just let us know.
So we know that, yeah. And my father said, okay, I'm going to borrow you money on one thing. You need to promise me, never start up a company again. And I said, okay, I can promise you many things, but I can't promise you that. That's like, I can't do it. It's like, it's my life. It's my passion to do stuff. And of course, it's a lot of work to do, to be an entrepreneur, and it's some hard work and it's some hard days, but it's also a lot of fun. You know, it's cool to start up and create things like you have done now. And you said you want to say something about voiceable. So and I see your roll up in the background. So tell me about how did you get the idea about voiceable?
I think I'm going to back up and tie it into what you just said, because we're talking about being being an entrepreneur. We're talking about creating things. And I think that every single person, every viewer that you have out there, Peter Erik, has a voice. And they have something in their heart to say. I really believe we all come to this planet Earth in this life with a message. We come to this life with something that we need to and want to contribute to the world. And so I think that with Voiceable, it comes from working with people first to find out what is your message here in life, and then about how do you bring that message to the world. Okay, I'm going to stop for a second. I see we're still getting a lot of questions about the sound and echoing and things like that. So people, please send us messages if you're not hearing us, and we'll do our best here. And if it's a problem, Peter Erik, I can also log on and join another network and just let me know. Okay. So it all came about because what I was doing was working with people on expressing themselves, whether it's a public speaker who's getting up in front of a corporation and holding a presentation or speech, or I've worked for years with entrepreneurs. I've been working for the incubator network of the European Space Agency for about 6-7 years now. And there are all these incubators, like Startup Lab, incubators all around Europe. And what I get to do is I get to travel around and meet a lot of these entrepreneurs and then help them to put together their presentations, their pitches, and so forth. And as I was working with them, we started to ask the question, I started to ask myself, what is it that gives one person impact? By impact or influence, what gives somebody the ability to get up and speak to other people and move them, to influence them, to get somebody to take action, to move their ideas or their thoughts, or get them to get up and log onto a website and do something. So what is that? What is that influence? And what I found out and what I started looking at was, okay, it's the words that we speak. The rhetoric, the words that we speak. It's how we use our bodies. I call that dance, but it's also the way you use your voice. And so I got fascinated by voice. And as I started looking more or listening more to voice, what I started to realize was that voice is something that few people think about. We get up in the morning before a presentation. We think about what clothes we're going to wear. We comb our hair. We think about our bodies. We obsess about the PowerPoint that we're going to use. But do we really stop and think about what voice should I use today? How could I use my voice in order to really reach my audience? And so what I found out was that very few people have even paid attention to it. Very few people have ever really gotten any feedback on their voice. I've done thousands of presentations and pitches over the years, and people always come up and pat me on the back and say, "Hey, great job," and it was a good story, or "I like that your slides were great." But rarely do people comment on voice to say, "Wow, when you were telling that story, your voice supported, your voice made it come alive." I never get feedback about voice, and yet it's such an important part. So that's where this came from. It came from really a journey into thinking about how can I help people to be more influential, whether they're selling, whether they're pitching, whether they're presenting, or even if you're sitting and talking to a teenager, for example. You've got children. You know how that is. When you're talking to children, there are times when you really need them to listen to you. And I don't mean shouting and yelling and saying, "You better listen to me." There are times when you need to be able to influence them. You need to get through to them. And learning to use your voice to strengthen your message is what Voiceable and this app and this technology I'm working with is all about.
And I think it's an interesting topic because it comes up with something I hear from a lot of the people I'm coaching today when it comes to online business. And then they said, "Oh, we don't want to copy anyone else because everyone is doing the same thing now." And I think it's the same with the voice. And also you talk about being authentic and being authentic. And there is something, if you're an entrepreneur, you need to do something different and be yourself and also find your own voice. So it's a really interesting topic, even in the voice, and how you, not only the voice, but also that you're truthful to yourself when it comes to everything, because a lot of people, I think, they are trying to copy others' voices, copy a recipe, copy something, and I think that's the right thing to do. But it's all about, like you said, finding your own voice. So how do I find my own voice?
Well, let's look. Let's listen. No, finding your own voice, that's an interesting question, and that's something more than we can cover in this short amount of time. But I think it has to do with first learning to listen. And it's funny that people come to my workshops, people who I've done a lot of work with. I'm ending up a group right now. I've got 10 people who I'm just finishing up a 6-week, it's an online coaching program, but we all work together. And it's funny, I was asking them in the final session yesterday, I was asking them, how have things changed for you? You've been working with me for 6 weeks. And it was really interesting that almost everyone said, while they've learned a lot about their voice and they've gotten much more clear on their own messages, for almost all of them said, the most amazing thing that's happened is I've learned how to listen at a completely different level. I've really learned how to listen differently, more deeply, how to listen to what other people are doing with their voices and the little nuances and messages that come through in the voice. And so to me, that's just such a fascinating twist on the whole thing. Finding your own voice is about really listening to the people around you that you're working with, and then bringing that in to whatever it is you work. And then there's a lot of people who you can learn from. Good people. People say to me, how can I be more like Barack Obama? How can I speak like Obama? Okay, I can teach you that. I can at least teach you some of the things that he does that most people judge to be really good. I have entrepreneurs who say, I want to be like Gary Vaynerchuk. I want to be pippy. I want to be fast. I want to be. And there's a lot of people out there trying to imitate Gary V in the same line. And it's hilarious, but it's all part of how we find our own voice. Try it out.
So I know this Voiceable, your new app, that you can test your voice and see who other you like, who are really big speakers. So which speaker are you most likely?
Well, it varies from day to day. I just read a really interesting statistic that men's voices, the pitch in your voice changes dramatically during the day. You ever notice how you get up in the morning and you've got that really deep voice, and then by the end of the afternoon, you can't even do that voice anymore? Our voices change. Women's voices don't change that much during the day. It's really interesting. So Voiceable is an app. It's a technology, and what it does is it listens to your voice. It figures out what are you doing with your voice, and it just gives you some feedback on that. It's just really simple stuff like that. For example, we can measure how quickly you speak. Okay, for me, that's a problem. When I get excited about something, I have a tendency to talk really, really fast because I get excited and I want to just get the words out as quick as I can. Well, the problem with that is that, especially if I'm on stage or if I'm speaking to an audience, if I go too fast, I lose a lot of my impact. I lose a lot of my influence. I lose my authority. And people are scrambling, trying to even just take in the words, rather than letting them land and sink in. My message doesn't get through. So I have to be reminded constantly to slow down. And that's something that we can measure scientifically. We measure the number of syllables per second. Pitch is something else, like how high or how low someone speaks. And you can say, okay, well, I just have the voice I have, but how do you use it? Is there a lot of life in your voice when you speak? Or is it kind of flat and dead and boring and kind of monotone, kind of robotic? This is something I've noticed, Petter, because a lot of Norwegians, when they speak English, their voice goes flat. There's not as much life. When they're speaking Norwegian, they have a bit more life in their voice, but when they start to speak English, it flattens out and it becomes much more monotone, and therefore it signals to the listener, hey, this guy's a little boring, or he's not connected to his message. If you're talking about something important, but you sound like a robot, you're giving the impression, well, he doesn't really care. Okay, so it's little things like that we pick up. And so Voiceable is just simply an app that can measure this. And I guess as a coach, as an executive coach, and working with all of these executives and these entrepreneurs, I train myself to listen, not only to the words and the body language. I pay attention to that, but also to how they use their voice. And But the problem, Pet Eric, is that I'm just a human and I can only listen to maybe 2 or 3 different voice characteristics at a time. I can listen to how fast you speak. I can listen to how much life is in your voice with your pitch. I can listen to whether you have a lot of volume or if you're using that, if you're speaking too softly or too loudly. There's lots of things like that I can listen to, but I'm just a human. And so I got to thinking, wouldn't it be cool if your app or if your computer, if a technology could listen and then do it objectively and listen to 10, 12 different voice characteristics. And so that's where it came about. So we started experimenting with what's going on. I see that Lisa Lemberg is asking, does it only understand English? And the interesting thing, Lisa, is it doesn't understand any language, okay? Because we're not paying attention to the words. But the tone, I understand your question. English, when we're speaking English, we have a different tone than you might have, visst du kommer från Nordnorge och har ett sån singing tone like that. You know, we do have different tone uses. But what we can measure is how much tone or how much life is in your voice. How much are you varying your tone as you're speaking? Is it just flatline or are you varying it? We can measure your average. Some people have really high-pitched voices, and we have to work to help them bring it down a little bit. Maggie Thatcher is a classic example, and I use her in a lot of my presentations. I play clips, audio clips of Maggie before she had voice coaching and after. And what she did was she learned to bring her pitch down, and it gave her instantly more authority when speaking. So these are all kinds of things. So basically with voiceable, you record your voice. Have you played with it yet, Pet Eric? Have you had time?
Yeah, I've tried. I tried it. Yeah.
Okay, so you record your voice. We scientifically categorize and measure your voice, and then we try to predict how audiences are likely to respond. So you asked me earlier who I get compared to. I oftentimes come up the same as Mitt Romney. Remember the guy that ran against Obama in 2012?
Yeah.
And he's a good speaker. He's kind of funny that he's a bit boring in my book. So it's funny that my voice should match up with him. Sometimes if I'm really putting a lot of life in my voice, I get matched with Jim Carrey, and I always like that one.
How about Jim Carrey? Is cool.
Jim Carrey's cool, and he's playful, and so that if I put a lot of play in my voice, then I'm more likely to come out like Jim Carrey than Mitt Romney.
I tried it, and I tried to be Jim Carrey, and I made it. So that was funny that you took up that one. But you said something about how many words you should speak per minute or something. Is there any impact on that if you speak too few words and too many? Is there any average what you should, when you are a speaker or when you are speaking? But many of the listeners today, they are online entrepreneurs or want to do more online, or coaches. So do you know anything about that, or have you been studying that?
Yeah, there's a lot of research that I've been able to find and pull up about speed, about pace. Okay, and if we're going to use words per minute, which we can, the ideal number of words per minute, judged by audiences, is somewhere between 140 and 170 words per minute. Okay, if you go slower than that, then you're kind of slow and audiences will go to sleep. If you're talking too slow, you put people to sleep. But most people have a tendency to talk too quickly. And when you get over about 170 words per minute, what happens is that it starts to get tiring. It's challenging for the audience. So what happens, the audience is working really hard to keep up with you. If you don't put in pauses, or if you don't slow down, eventually the audience is going to start to tune you out. And when you get up to people like Gary Vee, who speaks up at like almost 200 words per minute, Tony Robbins is another one. He speaks very, very fast. And he's been constantly coached and coached and coached to, it's okay to speak fast, but put in pauses. Give the audience a chance to catch up. And then you go on really quick, but then you got to pause. Give us a chance to catch up. So there's a lot of data to show this. What you want to do is you want to try to fit your speed to the speed that the audience can take in the information the best, assuming you want them to get your message. You have to really stop and think, am I on stage to show off? Am I on stage just to give out a bunch of information and then leave? Or am I on stage to actually get inside people's heads Am I talking to the audience and I want to get in their heads? I want to touch their hearts. I want to really have them connect to my message. And if that's the case, then oftentimes you have to slow down, but not too much. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I had this fun experiment because we are promoting a webinar now, help others to make webinars, and we promoted in Sweden and Denmark. It was just a test. I like to test things, and we still promoted in Norwegian. And the funny part was that a lot of Danish people, they were listening to me and Maria when we did this webinar, but every time they said, "Oh, can you please speak slower? Can you please speak slower?" So that was a test for me that I need to slow down a little bit, because also I can start to speak really fast when I get excited. And it was fun also. Some people was listening for 2 hours and they didn't understand a word, but we were so enthusiastic so they couldn't leave us. But that was another story. And for those who are listening,
yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say something for those who are listening now. Please ask us questions. This weekend, we have this awesome event, which is from the 27th to 29th, and it's 3 days about online marketing. And Rick is one of the speakers. And to those who want to come and don't have the money, you have opportunity now. If you just ask me and Rick a lot of questions in the next 40 minutes, I will give out a ticket to one of you or ask questions. So please come with questions you have about speaking, about voice, about entrepreneurship, about anything. We can talk about, Rick is like, is a master brain when it comes to entrepreneurship. So please ask us questions. Yeah, now we see you. You had something to say. Sorry, I stopped you.
I've even forgotten by now, but master brain, I'm not quite sure I'm going to own that title, but I have been an entrepreneur for myself. I've been an entrepreneur for almost 30 years, and I've been teaching and coaching and working with entrepreneurs for a long time. So, but master brain, I don't know about that, Patrick. But if you said you have a lot of people who work with webinars and work online. And one of the things that I think is really fascinating, I'm actually putting together a mini course right now, an online course for how to use your voice when you're online. Because when we're online, we're limited. If you and I were sitting in the same room, we'd be getting lots of signals from facial expressions, from body expressions. But as it is right now, all we're seeing is just these little boxes on the screen at best. So we're not able to be able to give as much information. So the voice becomes even more important. Okay, so you have to actually think about the fact that whether it's a webinar or whether it's any kind of an online thing, a teleconference, it might be, the voice is really important, and we don't hear ourselves very well. None of us hear ourselves. You and I have talked about this before, but it's like, and I'll check with all the viewers who are with us on that. Say yes if you're the kind of person who, when you hear your voice on a recording, you just love the sound of your voice. Okay, none of us do. Okay, none of us love the sounds of our own voices, because the voice inside my head sounds completely different than the voice that you guys are hearing, and so we don't hear our voices, and yet online especially, our voice is our most important communication tool. And so getting some feedback on it and learning just a few little things to help your webinar pitch, to help your teleconference, to help your telephone conversations makes a huge difference. There we go. Mybrit says, I don't love my voice. Yeah, Mybrit, we're all like that. See, here's the funny thing. In my head, I'm hearing a voice that's being amplified by the bone in my head, and I'm tapping on it right now. It's a big, thick bone in my case, okay? And that bone, the skull bone, amplifies the sound. The sound that I'm hearing in my head is much richer than what you're hearing. It's full of all kinds of nuances and sexy overtones, and I'm hearing this amazing voice. I always laugh and say that in my voice, or in my head, I sound like George Clooney. And yet, he's got this deep, lovely voice, and I'm so sexy. And then I hear myself on a recording, and it's like, that's not me. And my buddies go, that's you, Rick. And I go, no, I'm George Clooney. And they go, no, Rick, you are not George Clooney. You're definitely not. So again, we don't hear ourselves, and it's hilarious. So having a tool like voiceable, or at least having coaches who will give you some feedback, is really important. and trying to become more aware of how you use your voice makes a huge difference. It amplifies or it adds to your message. If you're trying to sell a product, or if you're trying to get people to think differently about something, whatever it is that you're working on, your voice is a huge part of it. Okay, so Anna-Marie says, after hearing it, sometimes it's not as bad as I thought. And you're right. The more that we learn to listen to our voices, it's not as bad as we think. Okay, but we don't typically listen.
And I think it's so important what they're talking about, to listen to yourself. And when I coach people to do webinars better one-to-one, I said the best tips I can give you is to listen to a webinar after and go through it, because you will learn so much about it. I can talk to you in hours and tell you what you should do better, but listen to yourself and listen to your own voice and see yourself on a webinar is like the best thing you can do when it comes to, I think it's also online marketing. If you're doing a lot of online marketing, putting up listen to yourself. Even this thing we are doing now, this pisspreik about sagmarksføring, I'm listening to myself after sometimes. Not because I like myself and think I'm a genius, but just because I want to improve myself, and you learn so much from it. So if you don't have anyone else to come back with feedback, please just do like Rick said, listen to your own voice. And Anne Merete says that after hearing it sometimes, it's not bad at all. So you will be used to it.
There's a fantastic exercise that I do on some of my advanced retreats, where I give you a mirror and have you talk to yourself. And it's one of those things where it's quite an existential experience to look in a mirror and talk to yourself, and then try to realize, what is it like to talk to me? What must it be like for the rest of the world to actually experience me? It's kind of a strange thought, but it's a really interesting thought. And we don't do enough of that. We don't really stop up to think about, who am I? And how does my voice either help my message, or does it take away from my message? There's something, you and I have talked about this before, Pat-Erik, but for our viewers, I'll remind them that there's something called cognitive dissonance. Cognitive in the brain, and dissonance is when things don't fit together. Okay, dissonance. And cognitive dissonance is when your words say one thing, but your voice or your body language says something different. For example, I've told this story before, but I recently got a haircut, and every time I get a haircut, I'm always insecure about the haircut, especially that first day, till it's like settled or whatever it is. And so I got a haircut. I went over to Startup Lab, where my company's, where we've got our offices, and I was talking to an entrepreneur, and talking back and forth. And then right at the end of the conversation, just as we're leaving, he looks up at my hair and he goes, "Nice haircut," and he walks away. But there was something about the way he said it, just didn't I wasn't sure. Was he laughing? Was he telling me, yeah, was he sarcastic? And so I raced off to look for a mirror to see if, maybe it was something wrong. It was hilarious. That's cognitive dissonance. I didn't know. Was it the words, "nice haircut," or was it the voice, "nice haircut"? So this is what happens. A lot of times people will be speaking and their voice is not helping their message. It's actually giving a conflicting message. I was working with an entrepreneur yesterday, and he's getting ready to pitch in front of the United Nations, a delegation, big delegation from the United Nations is coming to Paris. It's a big deal. And he was talking about refugee problems, and they have a technology that helps refugees, but he was talking about it. And as he was talking about these refugee problems and the sadness and the challenge that the refugees are going through, he was smiling all the time, and his voice was very cheery. Okay, and so I had to point out to him that there's dissonance. His voice is actually stealing away from his message. Okay, so it's again pointing these things out and being able to have some kind of a technology that gives you a little bit of feedback on how are you using your voice, and then try to say, okay, here's how you might be able to do this better at some time. Pat-Erik, I saw that we have some questions here, and I can't see them on the screen. They came and left. I think you can see them on the screen. Are there any questions that we need to answer here? Okay, so from Lisa Lemberg, thank you, Lisa. So the app will give me valuable feedback to improve my voice. Yes, that's the goal. Okay, the goal is that the app will give you feedback. In other words, it will tell you if you have a tendency to speak too quickly. Okay, it'll just say basically you may want to consider slowing down. Okay, it will tell you things like, for example, your voice is a bit flat. There's not much energy. We call that modulation. Okay, and modulation is something that goes up and down. If your voice is very flat and monotone and robotic, I can measure that, and then I can give you some feedback to say that that's something we call dynamism. A dynamic speaker is somebody who puts a lot of energy and life in their voice. Okay, and we can measure that and help you with that. So that's the thing. So it gives you some feedback to help you train and practice for your presentations. It's very, by the way, I'm not, yes, I am trying to sell, but I'm not. The app itself is $4.99. That's $4.99. In Norway, that's 50 kroner. That's less than a beer. You cannot buy a beer in Oslo for 50 kroner. Okay. So we priced it very inexpensively. We want lots of people to use this app. And one of the things that we do with the app is that it's also a marketing tool, because as soon as you start using the app, you're going to get more curious about how can I improve my message? How can I improve my delivery? How can I improve my webinars or my online courses or whatever it is that you're working on, your speeches, your presentations. And then you'll come back to us and we'll work for other things. We have training courses, we have workshops that we do. I'll be at Awesome this weekend with Petter Erik, and thank you. Lena says, great app. Thank you, Lena. It's a start. You know, the goal here is to create a technology that gives us feedback about things that we otherwise don't get feedback about. So that's really the goal. So I stopped up only because I can go on and talk about this forever, Petter Erik. I really love to. But what's interesting is that we all want, most people who are attending these kinds of, or following this kind of Facebook Live thing, most people who are doing that are looking for something, looking some way of improving a skill. They're looking some way of maybe improving whatever it is they're doing in their lives. Okay? And so therefore, your voice is such an integral part of that. I was talking earlier about teenagers. I have 2 teenagers in the house here, and most of the time when we're talking, who cares? But every once in a while, when you're having one of those conversations, just the other day, we're having a conversation with one of them, and it was a really important conversation, and I really, really needed this teenager to listen to me, to really take on board some of the old advice from an old man, but I needed him to take it on board. And then being able to stop for a second and really think, how can I use my voice so that this person gets it and that it lands and they stop up and they think about what I just said. That's what we're talking about. So it's not just about speeches and presentations and webinars. It's also about person to person. The journey that I've been on. Go ahead.
Yeah, I also think when it comes to selling, because I have been, when I was running Elevate, I saw so many speakers want to sell from stage, and also I've done it for myself, and I think, and also on webinars when people start to sell, or you have a online course and you want to sell it in the end, or have something online you want to sell, then I see that they change their voice when it's come to selling, because it's uncomfortable for them, and they lose their energy totally. And it's so interesting that you're talking about, because I think that's the most important thing when it comes to sell. You need to be authentic, you need to live in it, you need to think that your product is great service and you're helping people. So what you just said is really interesting, that you can hear somebody speaking, they're confident, everything's going fine, and then they get to the sales part and then the voice changes and they get uncertain and they're uncomfortable. You're spot on. You're right. People do that. When we change how we're feeling inside of us, our voice changes instantly. I mean, think about it. If you're feeling in love, your voice changes. If you're feeling nervous, your voice changes. If you're feeling really happy, your voice changes. So it's a direct mirror of what's going on inside of us. This is fascinating to me, because first off, we don't like the sound of our voices because it sounds different. Okay, so we tend not to like listening to ourselves. I have a video clip, I'll play it this weekend, from John Malkovich, the player, where he's talking about his own voice. He hates his own voice. He gets paid $2 million a film to be a voice specialist on the film, to use his voice, but he hates the sound of his own voice, and he tries to never ever listen to it. He will not go and listen to the movies that he's done the voiceovers for. He refuses. So not only is the voice something we don't like, but it scares the hell out of us, because we're exposed. Your voice exposes you. You're naked on stage, like you just said. If you get to the sales part and you're uncomfortable, we're going to hear it.
right away. And we're going to pick up on that. And so part of the journey of learning about voice is first off realizing that that's going to happen. If you're nervous, it's going to come out. Rather find a way to be able to let go of the nervousness, turn it into just joy and passion, and then realize that your voice will go with that and strengthen your message more than anything else. Learn to connect with the feelings that are inside of you and accept them. I do a lot of work with storytelling, and when we do storytelling, it's so interesting that sometimes I can take speakers who are really boring. I mean, just really boring to listen to, but I can get them to tell me a story. And when they tell the story, they come alive. All of a sudden, you don't say, then the lion jumped out of the bushes and chased me across the road. You just don't do that. You go, then the lion jumped out of the bushes and chased me across the road. You put life in your voice. And so it's about connecting to your story, but also connecting to what's going on inside your heart and inside your body and talking from there. So it's fun work. It really is fun work. And I'm looking forward to this weekend, to Awesome. And I'm going to be, I guess I'm going to be on for an hour and a half. So I'm going to talk a little bit about voice, and we're going to do some exercises as well.
We got a question here about that. So yeah, I will love to do more speaking, both online and on the stage. Will it be team for that this weekend? And you can answer for yourself, Rick.
Yes, absolutely. So we're going to be doing that. So thank you for that question. We are definitely going to be talking about that this weekend. And that is a theme that we're going to talk about. And I saw that another person came up with a question about Android. And my sincere apologies, we're only on the iPhone. We're trying to get the Android version done by next week. So hopefully the goal is by November 1st to have the Android version on the Google Play Store. So please bear with us. If you're interested, if you go to getvoiceable.com, getvoiceable.com, you can sign up there, and I'll be sending a message to all the people who are on our mailing list when we launch the Android version, hopefully November 1st. Thank you for asking that question. But yeah, Petter Erik, it's a really fascinating topic, and I know you do a lot of public speaking as well, and I think we all need feedback. We need honest feedback. We need good feedback when we're doing things well, and we need feedback sometimes to say, hey, your voice might be taking away from your message. If you have a tendency to get excited and speak too quickly, that's okay. Again, you'll score high on passion. You'll score high on dynamism. Okay, but at the same time, your message will get lost for a lot of people. They really just won't hear it because their brains are so busy processing. So learning to slow down.
I'm so happy that I have a lot of people around me that come with feedback to me, and I listen to them and and then I recognize and start to be aware of what I'm doing wrong when I'm speaking. And I think it's so important that you have someone around you that can give you feedback and give you the honest feedback. And also another thing is, like, we are talking about voice and speaking and all this thing now, but another thing is that you have to start. That's the most important thing. If you want to do more video, if you want to do it, when I look at my videos for 3 years ago, I think it's crap. I think it's terrible. But I did it, and still someone liked it, even if I thought it was crap. And I remember I never thought about being a speaker back in 2010. I want to promote international speaker. That was the only thing I should do. I never thought I could, because I was nervous when I was in the classroom. I was not good at school. I hated to say wrong things. So I was the quiet guy when it comes to talking about things in the school, but maybe a little bit louder outside. But then I remember in 2011, I was MC on a conference, and a friend of me come up to me, and a mentor said to me, Petter Erik, you're a good salesman, you make engagement, you do all this thing, and you made this conference, it was really good, but never go on a stage again, because you're so nervous. And I'm just saying this because now I can go on a stage, and I'm still a little bit nervous, but I can speak, and someone even says that I'm a good speaker. And I don't look at myself like a good speaker, but so I think it's something about you have to start. It's just like, even if we talk about you have to test your voice, and so don't let the voice stop you. Just come and start and practice and play with it.
I had a hilarious I see the comment here. Very nice, Esther. Yes, Peter-Erik has improved quite a bit. And the reason why, Peter-Erik, the reason why you've improved, and you will continue to improve, is that, as you said, you're open to feedback and you're willing to try new things. And you've always been willing to try new things. That's you. That's you in a nutshell. But it's this ability to be able to try out and to throw yourself into it. I was going to tell you, I had a funny story from yesterday. I was coaching a young man. He's gone through one of my initial online programs. This was the last day of the program, so I was doing a one-on-one coaching session with him. And he said to me, he said, I really want to become a speaker. I want to get good at this. And so I gave him the same advice that they were just giving everyone else, is that you got to get up and do it. And he goes, well, yeah, but it's difficult and I don't have my topic and I don't know about the events. And so as we narrowed it down and we started knocking those down, we started realizing that a topic is something that you develop, that the skills, they come as you make mistakes and try. We eliminated all that. And by the very end of the talk, he's like, all right, I'm going to do this. I said, great. So I said, how are you going to do that? And he said, I'm going to sign up and I'm going to get on stage. I'm going to sign up for an event. And so great. So we talked about that. And as a coach, I was just trying to hold him accountable. So I said, and I said, when are you going to do it? And he said, by the end of next month. And I go, okay, be more specific. And he said, finally, I got him to agree. He's going to sign up to be a speaker at an event before the 30th of November at midnight. I gave him a deadline. Okay. Yeah. And then I said, how am I going to know that you've done this? And he said, well, I'll tell you at some point. And I said, no, I want some specifics. I said, so, okay, I want a message. I'm going to put it in my calendar, November 30th, midnight. I'm getting a message from him. But the final thing was really funny. I said, what are we going to do if you don't do this? We set up a trigger. And he said, if I don't do it, I'll donate 100 euros to Red Cross Children's Fund. And I said, no, that's not good enough. Because what'll happen is that you'll get out there and you'll talk yourself out of it. And then you'll think, Red Cross Children's Fund, what the heck, giving 100 euros to them is a good thing. So I finally got him to agree. It was hilarious. We talked about it for a minute. I finally got him to agree that there is a Nazi party. He's from Bulgaria. There's a Nazi party in Bulgaria. He absolutely hates these people. I said he has to give 100 euros to them and post to Facebook, okay, if he doesn't do this by November 30th midnight. And we laughed about it. And then I got a message from him about an hour afterwards, and he was just saying, damn you. He said, there's no way I can get out of this now.
So you're a good coach then. So
it was hilarious. It was hilarious. But sometimes you have to do that. You've really got to just dive into it. You want to become a good speaker? Go ahead. Let's see. My Brit said it costs 55 Norwegian crowns. That's correct. When we price at $4.99, Apple changes the price a daily basis. It was 50 kroner 2 days ago or something like that. So my apologies. It's gone up 5 kroner, but complain to Apple. Somebody else asked a question about the voiceable app, if you could use it on an iPad, and the answer is yes. It's an iPhone app, but it does work on the iPad. If you're looking at it. And we'll try to get the Android version done. But more than the app, it's encouraging people, yourself as well, Peter-Erik, to be great speakers, to get out there. Because again, you have a voice. You have things in your heart that need to be spoken while you're on this planet in this life. And make sure that you give yourself a chance to do that. Get to become a speaker, to speak up. Lisa Lemberg is asking if she can use the app on the Mac, and the answer is no. It is an iOS app. We'll one of these days, probably beginning of next year, we'll create a native browser app, that'll work with that. But right now, it's not. But I think it's really important to encourage people to speak.
Yeah, it is. So if you want to win a ticket for Awesome this weekend and listen more to Rick, and maybe I can say some smart things also, please ask us a question, because I will give away a ticket to the people who ask us question. And it's not so many yet, so it's a big chance for you who already asked question that you can win. I think we have like 5-6 minutes left before we need to end this session. So why did you start like an entrepreneur the first time? What happened with you? Was it like, what was your first entrepreneur adventure also?
I was an entrepreneur as a kid. I grew up in a big family, and we didn't have a lot of money. We were never, it wasn't like we were poor, but we just never had a lot of money. And so, and we're 6 kids. I'm the oldest out of 6 kids, 5 boys and 1 girl. And so we learned really quickly how to work. It's something that I think is terribly missing in today's world. And we learned how to work. We learned how to do things, and we got paid to do that. And so I remember waking up in the morning, and school days even, I'd wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning. If there was a chance of snow, I lived in New York. If there was a chance of snow, I'd get up early. I'd race downstairs, got to beat my brothers, to get the one snow shovel that we had. And I'd go up and down the street ringing doorbells of the people. I'd wait until I see their lights come on, and I'd ring the doorbell, and they'd answer in their pajamas, and I'd go, "Hey, for $2, I'll shovel your driveway." And they'd be like, "Great." So, I was an entrepreneur already as a little kid, because if I needed money, I found a way to earn money. It was just always really simple, and so that was a really valuable lesson. But the first tech job that I ever did, I was working for many years at Norsk Data, and this is in about 1989 or something like that. And in 1989, I was working at Norsk Data, and Norsk Data went through several different layoffs. And it was funny, because I never saw myself as the kind of person who'd get laid off. I've got that sick kind of ego that thinks, "No, they wouldn't fire me. I'm too important." And so each time the company went through these big layoffs, I just assumed everything was going to be fine. And we went through about a third layoff. Sure enough, I got put into a new group of people, but I was fine. And the leader of the group, a guy named Olav Naustag, came up to me at one point, and he said, "Rick, I just want you to know that your name was on the list of the people to be fired. But," he said, "I knew you, and I know that you could be really valuable. So I actually put you on my list and I pulled you out of the fire." And to be really honest, Petter, that shook me. I mean, that completely shocked me. Okay, I see Trudy Strand was working there. So Norsk Data was a big company back then, but that really shocked me. And it was right after that I did my first tech startup together with 2 other programmers, Jürgen Lien and Trond Bagqvist. And we started Blue Sky Software, which was eventually acquired by Macromedia Adobe. And it was acquired for $66 million. Unfortunately, I was out of the company when that took place, but I was one of the founders together with those 2 guys. And then that gave me a taste of the fact that I don't ever want to be in a situation where somebody else is deciding my fate. If I can figure a way to make money in working for a company, why can't I just figure out a way to do it for myself? So since then, I've been an entrepreneur, and it's been a fun journey. How about you? What got you started?
Oh, it's a quite fun story, and a story that also, because I was working in like a salesman in a company called I think it's Clear Channel Group now. I think it's called that.
Yeah.
So I was selling advertising on monitors on shopping centers around Norway, and I had a really good boss, or a sales leader, but he was promoted to be the CIO in Clear Channel Group. So and then I get a old sales guy, 65 years old. He drove a Porsche 911, and he thought he was 20 years. And the first thing he said to me, "Hey, I've been the best salesman in Norway, so listen to me, and you will have success." And I had quite success with it, but he told me to sell in a totally other way, and say that everything I was doing was wrong. I could not sell, and what I really believed in was my passion about selling. He said it was wrong. You should do it another way. So he was more like the 70s style of selling, really push. So I decided, wow, I can never have a boss anymore. So then when I was 21, and I stopped that work, stopped that job, and I started to work like a consultant in a sales company. After that, I've just been a entrepreneur, and decided that I can never have a job for working for someone anymore. So that was my story about it.
That's funny. It's hilarious how external things can oftentimes trigger us to jump into those situations, and that's good. So life gets in the way of these big plans that we have, and sometimes that's a really good thing. I know for me, it has been really empowering to be in that situation where I know that no matter what happens, I'll find a way to get by. I see we have some questions coming up, and I just want to make sure I answer those, Petter, before they go away. And I saw that there were 2 questions about women's voices and pitch. Okay, Anne Merete Do you think it's more difficult for women to get a great voice for speaking because they have a higher pitch? Okay, so the interesting thing about that is that pitch is voice tone. We measure it in hertz. Okay, so it's high or low. Okay, that would be measured in hertz, whether you have a high or a low voice. And we all have the voice we have. And I'm doing this with my hands because there's a range of voice. From my highest to my lowest, I have a fairly high upper pitch, and I have a fairly low range on the bottom. How we use that is what's interesting. So you have the voice you have, but at the same time, how do you use it? Do you tend to hang out in the upper regions? Do you tend to talk way up here? Okay, because you can do that. A lot of people do that, especially if they talk really fast, because the faster you talk, the higher up, you've got to bring your pitch up. You can't talk really fast and really, really deep. It just doesn't work. Okay, so therefore, the tone of your voice is how do you use it? How do you choose to use it? And as a woman, do you stay up in your top of your head? Do you have that lovely, watery, kind of flowing voice like that? Or do you bring it down? And it's just a question of how you use your voice. Pitch denotes authority. And if I'm speaking along and I go up at the end of a sentence or a statement, it's a question, right? If I say, Peter Erik is doing a fantastic job with his new venture, that's a question. Peter Erik is doing a fantastic job setting up these programs like Awesome. If I go up at the end, it becomes a question. If I go down at the end, if I say Peter Erik is doing a fantastic job with these things, Awesome is going to be it's going to be a fantastic experience. Do you hear me dropping down? If I do that, then it signals I'm certain about what I'm saying, and this is the same in all languages. Okay, this whether you go up or you go down. So tone is really important. Teaching women to maybe go down, to use a downward motion in your tone can really help their authority. So that was not a very good answer. That was kind of a rambling answer, but come to the workshop this weekend and I'll try to do a better job. But I wouldn't say it's more difficult for women. I would say that because you have a naturally higher voice, there's some different things we have to work with. Let's see. You talked about how your voice has a tendency to change when we come to the sales part. Could you say something about using the voice when it comes to closing a sale, for instance, in a one-on-one situation? Good question, Jon Harold. More than just the voice, when you're getting to the end of a pitch, you need to be connected. And connection, what is connection? It's when we have a really high level of rapport. If I'm selling to you, I need to understand your problem. Okay, I need to understand what is it you're trying to do that I believe I can help you with. And the more I'm connected to you and the problem that you're facing that I'm going to help you solve, the easier it is. And so it comes down to the relationship. When we are connected with people, when you're really connected, our voices change. So in other words, if I was coaching you on how to close a sale, what I would say is at the end of your sale, go inside your body, make sure you are really connecting to this person you're talking to. And then listen to your voice and make sure that your voice matches that. You're talking from a very close, connected, and good place. Because again, if you're a salesperson, you're there to help someone. And the American buy, push, that works in some situations. I think that for most people, especially most people here in Scandinavia, that's less effective than someone who really connects with you. Okay, and I think that's a different alternative for how we sell. But your voice will.
I think I normally say to people, no, we need to end in 2-3 minutes because I have a meeting. But I think I say to people that you need to come from your big big why. Why are you doing it? Why are you selling it? Why? What can it help with? And if you come from that and you come from a place that you help the people you try to close instead of getting that signature, I think that's a big difference how we do it. And so come from your big why. Think about why you're selling it, and if you don't like what you're selling, find some other product to sell.
You're right.
Yeah.
It's about finding your authentic voice, the real you, and speaking from that space, and then genuinely helping people. That's a great point, Peter Erik. I know you've got to end up because you've got a meeting that starts at 12, and But I want to say thank you so much for having me on. It's always a pleasure. It's always a lot of fun to be able to speak with you, Peter-Erik. And I want to thank all of the viewers. I see we've had up to about 40 people live here as we're going. And thank you so much, everyone. And it's voiceable, getvoiceable.com if you're interested. And if not, come to Awesome this weekend and come up and introduce yourself and tell me that you were on the Facebook Live session. I'd love to meet you and to talk to you more.
Yeah. And after 1 o'clock, I will come back and I will give a ticket for free. So thank you for joining today. And thank you again, Rick. I know you're a businessman, so I'm really appreciate that you could join this on a short time message from yesterday. So thank you. And I see you on Friday.
Great. Looking forward to seeing you then, Peter. Take care. Thanks again.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.